We already have a slideshow. Okay, so this is today's lecture, and this is the outline for today's lecture. Again, we'll start with the highlights of this course, the main highlight of this course. So I'll briefly review it. And that is again the structural and functional view of a computer. So we'll just go through the slide. But in this lecture, we'll learn about some important language features. Okay, some important features of the C++ language that help you that help you perform some useful computations. Okay, so we'll start with a code, and in that code we'll be using something that we call a loop. So a loop is basically a language feature or structure that is used to repeat a computation. If you need to do something repeatedly, so you need loops to instruct the computer that this is the code that I want to repeat. Okay, so we learn about that. We have done, like, we know how to input and output strings, we know how to input and output integers, and similarly, the same mechanism and principle applies to other data types. So we learn about some new language features that will help you write useful code, and we'll also learn something more about the language, especially data types and type safety and other important issues. So let's get started. This is the structural view of a computer. We have talked about it, that any computer system has these essential components. It has a CPU, it has input, which is basically some sort of sensing mechanism or taking data from the real world, from the outside. That data is processed by the CPU according to a program or instructions that are stored in memory. And once the processing is done, you get some output that is either displayed on a display, you listen to it on a speaker, or there is some actuator which performs something. This is the functional view. Each component has a specific task. So input is used to acquire raw data or sense raw data. The processor actually does all the processing. All the computations, they are carried out by the processor. And the computations, which computations to perform, how and how many times to perform, that is instructed by the program which is in the RAM. And then ultimately you get information on the output. So this was basically this is the main highlight of this course, and you are basically learning this course or taking this course in order to be able to program the CPU or microprocessor. Now this is an example of a computation where we want to repeat a set of operations. So up until now, whatever we have done, like, we do it only once. And if you want to do it again, if you remember, I assigned you a lab task, one of lab tasks, and the lab task was to print a multiplication table. Okay. Now, with your existing knowledge, the multiplication table would be printed like by repeating a statement again and again. Okay. So that is an inefficient way of doing things. You have to write a lot of code to print a simple multiplication table. Now you can do that in fewer lines of code, and that can be done if you by using a repetition structure, okay, or by using a loop. So we learn about the while loop. In C++, you have the while loop and you have the for loop. So you have two different types of loops. Okay. So we learn about the while loop in this particular session. Now look at this code. This code is basically a code or a code for a program that does conversion, simple conversion from inches to centimeters or from centimeters to inches. So there is a multiplication factor, number of centimeters per inch, and that is say 2.454. If you want to convert inches into centimeters, you have to convert the inches with 2.54 and you will get the result in centimeters. Okay, so conversion is a common problem. Do conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius or from Celsius to Fahrenheit, or you do currency conversions, say you convert rupees into dollars or dollars into rupees. So conversion often happens. And in engineering, so if you go to other courses, so you might be converting different units into different unit systems. So you have the foot pound system. So if you are given force in foot pounds or some or work or energy in foot pounds and you want to convert into joules, so how do you do that conversion? So you can code that, okay, that can be done automatically. So how do you do it? Look at this code. We'll briefly look at this code and then we'll write it, okay. So this variable has been declared with a keyword const, double centimeter per inches. This quantity is something that does not change. It is a constant quantity. So that is why it has been declared with the keyword const. Any variable that is supposed to retain a constant value, which the value of which is supposed not to change, is not supposed to change, you can declare that variable constant. Okay. So this variable cm per inch, this has been declared as a constant. That means within this program you cannot change its value. You can only initialize its value. At the time of declaration you have to specify its value, and after that you cannot change its value. For example, if you are using constant like pi, okay, so const double pi and you assign it some value. Now pi is a mathematical constant, and when you are writing programs that deal with the value of pi, then you should also take care so that pi is declared as a constant there as well. Okay, so there will be there will definitely be situations where you would need to have constant variables, and when there are those situations you can declare a variable to be constant using the keyword const. So const is a keyword. Okay, so if you want this variable to be const, you can use the keyword const to specify that. Then length would be some quantity that will be entered by the user. So the user would want to convert some given length, which would be in inches to centimeters. Okay. Now let us write it. That would be much more easier to do. Let us create a new project. That would be a console application. So I hope you are aware of these steps. This is computer programming. Okay. So we want it to be here. Today is say 25th June. Okay. Okay, so let us write this program. We want to do this conversion. Let me get rid of this line. First, there would definitely be situations where you would want a variable to be constant and not be able to change its value. How do you do that? So first of all, let us declare this variable double cm per inch. Okay, how many centimeters are there per inch? 2.54. Okay, so we have initialized. This is an initialization. We are declaring and initializing the variable at the same time. Now this variable is not a constant. Let us simplify this name. Okay, although it is not recommended, but we need to be quick. CPI, centimeters per inch. Okay, so you can in the comment you can say this variable is basically centimeters per inch. You can say that in the comments. Now it has not been declared as constant, so I can change its value anytime. I can say 3.65. Okay, you can do that. This is fine. Okay, you compile this code, it is fine. If I want it to be constant, then I need to explicitly tell the compiler that I want CPI to be constant. How do you do that? You use the keyword const. You say const double CPI. Now a constant variable must be initialized at the time of declaration. After that you cannot change its value. Now this code is not fine. This statement would result in an error. Okay? This statement would result in an error. Compile this file. So error kya hai? Assignment of read only variable CPI. So CPI is a constant variable. You have declared it as constant. It is read only now. So you cannot do something like this. Okay? This is out of bounds. Similarly, if you declare a variable to be constant, you need to initialize it at the time of declaration. This is also a requirement. If you fail to do that, your compiler will object. Okay? Uninitialized const CPI. Because you have not initialized it and you have declared it as constant as well, so later on you cannot change its value. So right now it has garbage value. So come as come C++ ka compiler, like it is helping you not to be processing garbage values. So you have to declare, if you want a variable to be constant, to retain its constant value, you need to declare it const. How do you do that? You use the keyword const. Once you declare a variable to be constant, you have to initialize it. At the time of declaration, you have to specify an initial value. If you fail to do it, then the compiler will flag an error. Okay? That is an error. Now, we need to ask the user to enter some length in centimeters, and then we need, inches, and then we need to convert that length into centimeters. Okay, that is what we want. वो आप कैसे करेंगे? So I hope like you are aware of that. So first of all, we print this message cout, and we ask the user, please enter the length in inches. Okay? So the user would enter some value in inches. Now we need to read that value and we need to store it in another variable. So that variable is length. Okay. As a best practice, whenever you declare a variable, you should initialize it with some value. You should not leave uninitialized variables. Now this is a type safety issue. Like we'll talk about that in the later slides, but the C++ compiler does not stop you from using uninitialized variables. Okay? Now this can be a problem. If you forget to initialize a variable properly and you use it in your computations, so the variable will have some garbage value and that value will make everything useless in all the computations that you do later on. Okay? So समझ में आई ना? You should never leave a variable uninitialized. When you declare a variable, assign it some initial value at the time of declaration. ठीक है? That is the main issue. That is something that you need to remember. Now let us read the value of length, and how do we convert it into centimeters? So we just multiply the length with CPI. Okay? The length in centimeters is equal to, so what is it equal to? We need to multiply length but by CPI. Okay, sorry, it is centimeters, and then you may, let us do an end line. So what is this code going to do? It is going to ask the user to enter one value, and it will convert that value into centimeters, print the result, and then vanish. Okay? So compile this code, it compiles fine, then build and run. And this is how the program runs. Okay? Please enter the length in inches. Say it is 12 inches. Okay? So length in centimeters is equal to 30.48 centimeters. Okay? Yeah, a better output would be कि हम कहें कि जी length and then inches is equal to, और यहाँ पे we put a centimeter. ठीक है, centimeters. ठीक है, समझ में आई? So let us build and run it, and then the output will change. These are decisions that you should be making. How to make your user interface more friendly. Okay, say 65 inches. So that is around 165.1 centimeter. This is a better form of output. Now the question is, we don't just want to convert one value of inches into centimeters. We want to repeat this process. Okay. So if you want to repeat some process, what is the process? This is the process. This process asks the user to enter a value in inches. We read that value and we convert that value into centimeters and put out the output. So we want to repeat this block of code. This block of code we want to repeat. Okay. How can you repeat it? There are two ways of doing it in C++. One is using the for loop, the other is doing the while loop. Okay. So how do they work? So first of all, which block do we want to repeat? So you should be clear, what do you want to repeat? We want to repeat this process. Okay. So let me enclose this in these opening and curly braces. Let us create this block. Okay. So we want to repeat this block. This is the block of code that we want to repeat. Which block of code? This block of code. The block of code between this opening curly brace and closing curly brace. Okay? We want to repeat it. Acha. Now how does the while loop work? How does the while loop work? Okay? So for the while loop you specify, let us look at the syntax of the while loop. सिस्टम हैंग हो गया थोड़ा सा रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं कर रहा ठीक Do we have a slideshow? No, we don't. Let us first look at the syntax of the while loop. So this is how the while loop looks. Okay? This is the syntax of the while loop. Okay? While, then within these parentheses you specify a condition. While some condition is true, repeat the block execution of this block of statements. ठीक है? तो ये जो block of statement हमने specify किया है between this opening curly brace and this closing curly brace, the execution of this block of code will be continued or carried out while this condition is true. जब तक ये condition true है. जब तक ये condition true है. Now how do you specify conditions in C++? How do you specify conditions in C++? So in order to specify or formulate condition, you use conditional operators. Conditional operators कौन से हैं? हमारे पास वो जो relationship operators, if you remember from algebra, you must have heard about the trichotomy property of numbers. So if you have two numbers, they have some relationship. Either A is less than B, or A is greater than B, or A is equal to B. Okay. So those are relational operators. This is how you construct relational expression. हमारे पास वो relational operators मौजूद हैं. This is the less than operator. Left hand side is less. If left hand side is less than right hand side, it would return a true value. Otherwise, it would return a false value. ठीक है? तो it returns a boolean value. ये जो conditions हैं, यहाँ पे हम check कर रहे हैं कि whether some condition is true or false. So condition की जो output है, it is always a boolean value. It is always either true or false, 1 or 0. Okay, either true or false. If it is true, the output is 1. If it is false, the output is 0. So 1 is interpreted as true, and 0 is interpreted as false. So you have these relational operators, okay? Not relationship operators, these are relational. So left hand side is less than, if left hand side is less than right hand side, then it will return a true value. Otherwise, if left hand side is equal to or greater than right hand side, it will return a false value. Here this would return a true value if left hand side is greater than right hand side. This is the equality operator. Okay, so you use the so you use it twice. Okay, so the equality operator is different. If you use it, sometimes people get confused. Like normally in arithmetic, हम ये जो sign है ना, इस symbol को we use it for equality. But in C++, this is the assignment operator. This is not the equality operator. What does it do? It assigns the value of the right hand side to whatever you have on the left hand side. So it is basically a copy operation. It evaluates the value of the right hand side and copies that value into the left hand side. Okay? This is not equality. Okay, so this is a warning. You should be careful. Okay, this is not equality. It does not test the equality. This operator tests the equality. You have to use it twice. So this tests whether the left hand side is equal to the right hand side. If they are equal, it returns true value. If they are not, it returns a false value. This is the inequality operator. Okay, so this is the inequality operator here. So if the left hand side and right hand side they are not equal, you get a true value, otherwise you get a false value. And then we have the less than or equal to. This is the less than or equal to. If the left hand side is less than or equal to the right hand side, then you get a true value, otherwise you get a false value. This is the greater than or equal to operator. Okay, if the left hand side is greater than or equal to the right hand side, you get a true value, otherwise you get a false value. So you specify a condition. You specify a condition using these relationship operators, relational operators. While this condition is true, the loop will execute. As soon as this condition becomes false, the loop will stop executing. Okay? So that is the deal for while loop. So you have to specify some condition here in order to repeat the execution of this block. Now, the while loop has these two versions. In fact, any control structure, this is also called a control structure. A control structure is basically a structure in programming language that controls the execution of instructions, or the flow of execution of instructions. So control structures, they basically control के कौन सी instructions execute होंगी और कितनी मरतबा execute होंगी, कौन सी नहीं होगी, कौन सी होगी. So this is one of the control structures you can, और इसको repetition structure भी कहते हैं while loop. Now it has these two versions. If you want to repeat a single statement, you do not need to create this block. But if you want to repeat more than one statements, then you need to create this block. Okay? So personally, I prefer whether you want to repeat a single statement or multiple statement, you should always explicitly create this block. Because at times आप भूल जाते हैं. You want to repeat multiple statements, but आप ये block create करना भूल जाते हैं. And then you expect that all these statements would be repeated, but only one statement is repeated. Okay? So then you run into problems. So this is the syntax of the while loop. This is how you specify it here. Now let's return to the program. What do you want to do here? Now you have to decide how would you control the behavior of the while loop. We want this while loop to continue as long as length is a non-zero value. Length जो variable है, जब तक user non-zero length enter करता है, so we want the conversion process to continue. As soon as the user enters 0, that means the user does not want to continue. Yeah, as soon as the user enters, say, a negative value, that you have to decide. This is a matter of interface and those things. So you have to decide, and then you have to give instructions to the user कि अगर आप, if you want to discontinue, please enter 0 or enter a negative value. ठीक है? So let us keep things simple. We want this process of conversion to continue as long as there is a non-zero length value. ठीक है? So that means कि ये जो इसको मैंने initialize किया to 0, I have to change this as well. ठीक है? अगर मैं इसको नहीं करता तो फिर क्या होता है वो देख लें आप पहले. So how would we या चलें पहले इसको 1 कर लेते हैं, because we want this loop to execute as long as the length is non-zero. ठीक है? So if you initialize the length with 0, then you are not going to execute this loop even once. ठीक है? अच्छा. How do you specify the condition? So you start with the keyword while, while, and then within these parentheses you specify the condition. While this condition is true. So repeat this loop. What is the condition? The condition is while length is not equal to 0. Okay? While length is not equal to 0, you want to continue this process. Okay? So यहाँ पे देखें ना, the program executes sequentially. So when your compiler starts, say when your computer starts executing this code, so what would it do first? वो पहले CPI variable को create करेगा, उसमें 2.54 की value store कर लेगा. Then it would create the length variable, उसको initialize कर देगा with the value 1. Then it would come here, it would see कि there is a condition while length is not equal to 0. So length की value have 1 and it is not equal to 0. So then you should continue the execution of this block of code. So that means this condition is true. क्योंकि length की value 1 है and 1 is not equal to 0. So this condition is true. When this condition is true, that means this block has to be executed. So then your program enters here and it asks the user कि please enter the length in inches. User कोई non-zero value enter करता है. That is converted into centimeters. फिर आपका कंप्यूटर वापस यहाँ पे आ जाता है. It looks at the value of length once again. Length was some non-zero value. ठीक है, the condition is true. फिर ये मैसेज प्रिंट होता है. फिर वो यूजर कोई वैल्यू एंटर करता है. ठीक है, देन वो कन्वर्ट होती है इनटू इंचेस. एंड दिस प्रोसेस कंटिन्यूज until the user decides कि नहीं अब मैंने जीरो की वैल्यू एंटर करनी है. जैसे वो जीरो की वैल्यू एंटर करता है आपको क्या कहते हैं वो जीरो की वैल्यू सेंटीमीटर्स में कन्वर्ट हो जाती है एंड देन योर प्रोग्राम टर्मिनेट्स. ठीक है, सो लेट अस सी इफ इट बिहेव्स लाइक दिस. लेट्स कंपाइल दिस कोड and let us build and run it. Okay, so this line is being executed. That means this condition was true. ठीक है, ये line तभी execute होगी जब ये condition true होगी. ये condition true है क्योंकि length is 1 and 1 is not equal to 0. So enter some value. Say we want to convert 98 inches. It is equal to 248.92 centimeters. Then say 478 inches, 2364. You can go on and on and on until you decide कि नहीं zero. ठीक है, so then zero is converted in centimeters, and then when it returns back and tests, the length की zero value है, zero is not equal to zero, condition false हो जाती है, so आपका वो जो block of code it is no longer executed. This is how the while loop works. जी. Yes, if you initialize length to zero, what will happen? G, what will happen? The loop will not be executed. Why? Because 0 is not equal to 0. ठीक है जी, condition false हो जाती है. ठीक है, so 0 is not equal to 0 is equal to 0. 0 is not equal to 0 जो condition that is false. When this condition is false, then this code is not executed. This block of code is not executed. ठीक है, समझ में आई? This is how you use the while loop. Asha, up until now, like we have been learning the language so far. We have not solved any serious problems. So in the coming weeks, I'll be assigning you problems, interesting problems. And hopefully by after learning this while loop and then the other control structure that we want to learn in this class, the if-else structure. So you'll be able to do decision making. You'll be able to compare things, and if one condition is true, do one thing, another is true, do another thing, something like that. So then you'll be able to write interesting programs. So you'll be getting homeworks. Homeworks will be mostly writing programs to solve some problems. Okay, so you have to understand the problem, come up with a solution, and then code that solution. Okay, so वो इस किस्म के होंगे. Okay, so this is, I hope this is clear. Let us get back to the presentation. Okay, so this was the syntax of the while loop. This is that code. Okay? So we have gone through it. So I hope you understand it. Acha. Now again, like we have mentioned these things, but formally, we are going to talk about different types and different issues with the data types in the C++ language. So we need to mention these things. So you know these built-in types, we have talked about it. We have the Boolean type, which you can declare using the keyword bool, and you use it for storing logical values, true, false, 1, 0. So when you have a condition, the condition also returns your Boolean value. ठीक है, ये जो while में आपने जो अंदर condition specify की है, so that is also like a Boolean value. Every condition gives you a Boolean value as a return, true or false. ठीक है. Now C++ may like C++ gives you a lot of power as a programmer. So like even ideally the while loop, like ideally you should have a condition here and this condition should be constructed using these relational operators. The output of the relational operator is a logical value, ठीक है, either true or false. But C++ is क्या कहते हैं, it is a powerful language in the terms के in terms के ये programmer को बहुत ज़्यादा power देता है. And if the programmer is responsible enough, so the programmer can use that power to good purpose. But if the programmer is irresponsible, तो वो फिर अपने लिए भी मसाइल create करेगा औरों के लिए भी. For example, let us look at this version of the while loop. Now ये है while length is not equal to, this is a condition, and this condition evaluates to either true or false. ठीक है. अच्छा, if I say while 5, ठीक है, while 5, now this may not make any sense to you कि ये आपने किया क्या है, ठीक है. While 5, what does it mean while 5 या while 1, while 1. So let us compile it. Compiler didn't say anything, ठीक है. It is not a condition, it is nothing, it is just the final value. The condition would give you either true or false, either 1 or 0. So I've just written while 1. So this condition is always true. This is an infinite loop. We have essentially created an infinite loop. So अब आपका ये जो प्रोग्राम चलेगा ना, so this would continue on and on. आप 0 एंटर करें, आप माइनस वैल्यू एंटर करें, आप जो भी करें, this is an infinite loop. ठीक है. Now normally we are not interested in an infinite loop. ठीक है. You create infinite loops in those situations where you know that this program would run forever. For example, traffic signal है. So as long as it is on, it is supposed to execute one program forever. So that program is written inside an indefinite loop. So while 1 and then put all the code in there and then it executes forever. क्योंकि उसकी ज़िंदगी यही है. जैसे वो on होगा, उसने बस red, yellow, green, red, yellow, green उसमें चलते रहना है. So it has to execute one program for its entire life. Usually you use infinite loops in embedded programs. Embedded systems के लिए जो आप programs लिखते हैं, so usually those are infinite loops. यहाँ पे we do not create infinite loops. अच्छा, यहाँ से निकलना कैसे? Press Ctrl plus C. अच्छा, ये तो और ही पागल हो गया. Control plus pass break. ठीक है. कंट्रोल प्लस पॉज ब्रेक का एक बटन होगा या किसी कीबोर्ड पे ब्रेक का एक बटन होगा. तो ये मुख्तलिफ ऑप्शंस यू कैन ट्राई. कंट्रोल प्लस जी, कंट्रोल प्लस सी, मुख्तलिफ ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम में मुख्तलिफ तरीकों से ये इन्फिनिट लूप टर्मिनेट होता है. किसी प्रोग्राम से आप निकलते किस तरीके से. अच्छा, अगर मैं इसको लिखूं while 5, ठीक है, स्टिल इट वुड वर्क फाइन. Still we would manage to create an indefinite loop. ठीक है. Now this does not make any sense. ठीक है. This is a positive numeric value, integer value, और उसको यूज कर रहे हैं आप in order to replace a condition. ठीक है. So it does not make a lot of sense, especially नया बंदा जो language सीख रहा है. Now this is a demonstration के there are plenty of things which are not type safe, which should not be done, but you can do it in C++. ठीक है. So usually these are trick questions, trick interview questions. या अगर आप interview तो ना भी हो, लेकिन अगर आपको वहाँ पे आपसे कोई टेस्ट वेस्ट लेते हैं तो उसमें इस किस्म का स्टूपिड सा प्रोग्राम होता है जो कि आपने कॉम्बिनेशन ट्राई नहीं किया होता और वो आपसे पूछ लेते हैं कि अच्छा जी अब क्या होगा. This is not a recommended way of writing code. You should not be writing code like, your code should be simple, straightforward, easy to understand and टाइप सेफ. लाइक टाइप सेफ से मुराद कि जहाँ पे जो डेटा टाइप एक्सपेक्टेड है वहीं वहाँ पे वही होना चाहिए. हेयर वी एक्सपेक्ट अ कंडीशन, देयर शुड बी अ कंडीशन. ठीक है. आप जो इंटरनल रिप्रेजेंटेशन है बूलियन वैल्यूज, यू शुड नॉट बी एक्सप्लॉइटिंग दैट इंटरनल रिप्रेजेंटेशन. नाउ बूलियन वैल्यूज जो हैं दे आर आल्सो रिप्रेजेंटेड एज नंबर्स, कैरेक्टर्स आर आल्सो रिप्रेजेंटेड एज नंबर्स. So C++, like it has this you cannot say it is a problem, but it does not stop you from using those data types in ways that they should not be used. For example, look at this situation. We have character A, B, and C. Okay. So say, let's suppose character A has this value. Say it has this value 1. Okay. Character B has this value 2. And character C, we say it is equal to A plus B. What would be stored, what would be the value in C? Can somebody, G? Can you say anything about the value in C? Like if I say something like C out, C out, A is equal to, and then we print A, then we say comma B is equal to, and then we print B, and then comma A plus B equal to C equal to C. Acha. Can you say anything about the output here, especially the value of C? So one option, one answer is B, C would have the value 3. Acha. So one answer is that we will have 1 plus 2 yani concatenation. There will be concatenation. Now concatenation is an operation. Acha, ठीक है. This is also G. Another answer. 3 आएगा. Any other suggestion? बोल लें. Maybe आपके पास आपका आंसर ठीक हो. आप जी. 12. How do you say 12? Concatenations के जरिए 1 2. ठीक है. Strings में होती है वो character. जी. Any other answer? कोई कैरेक्टर होगा. ठीक है. So this answer is close to the correct answer. We don't know कि क्या प्रिंट होगा. कोई कैरेक्टर होगा. Why? ठीक है. वो कैरेक्टर प्रिंटेबल भी हो सकता है, नॉन प्रिंटेबल भी हो सकता है. Because this is a character, A is equal to, within single quotes, 1 means not the number 1 but the character 1. So the ASCII code of character 1 would be stored in the variable A, which is not 1. Like I don't know the exact value of that character, but मुझे पता है कि वो ASCII code 1 नहीं है. Maybe 31 भी नहीं है शायद, लेकिन it is greater than 1. Similarly, the ASCII code of B, it is also not 1. ठीक है? Sorry, 2. It is also not 1. It is more than 1. So यहाँ पे A में जो वैल्यू स्टोर होगी वो A 1 का ASCII कोड स्टोर होगा. B में जो वैल्यू स्टोर होगी वो 2 का ASCII कोड होगा, which is not exactly 2 or exactly 1. They are different than 1 and 2. ठीक है. वो भी आप वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं. You can assign this value to an integer variable और उसको प्रिंट करें तो फिर आपको उसकी एग्जैक्ट ASCII कोड भी नजर आ जाएगा. So that means कि C would have the sum of ASCII codes of 1 and 2. So it would be some value जो कि definitely greater than 1, 2 and 3 उससे बढ़ के होगी. और जब आप उसको प्रिंट करेंगे तो वो जिस कैरेक्टर का ASCII कोड होगा वो कैरेक्टर यहाँ पे प्रिंट होगा. ठीक है. अब मुझे नहीं पता कि वो किसका ASCII कोड आपके पास. You should have the ASCII कोड का जो टेबल है, तो then you can precisely say कि इसका आंसर क्या होगा. ठीक है. अच्छा, let us execute this code और इसको हम कह देते हैं while 0. So this would never execute. अच्छा जी, let us build and run. अच्छा, here you can see A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, A plus B is equal to C is equal to C. So by coincidence उसका जो ASCII कोड है वो स्मॉल c के बराबर है. ठीक है. अब इसमें आप कंफ्यूजन ना हो कि इसका नाम C है तो इसलिए ये C प्रिंट हो रहा है. अगर हम इसका नाम Z कर दें फॉर एग्जांपल, और यहाँ पे हम कहें कि दिस इज Z, और यहाँ पे हम इसको Z कर दें और यहाँ पे भी इसको Z कर दें, तो Z नहीं प्रिंट होगा. ठीक है. C ही प्रिंट होगा. C. ठीक है. सो वो जो आपने A1 और 2 के ASCII कोड्स को एंटर ऐड किया और उसके बाद जो ASCII कोड आपके पास आया उसको आपने कैरेक्टर वेरिएबल में ही स्टोर किया, सो दैट इज द ASCII कोड ऑफ C, ठीक है। सो C का जो ASCII कोड है स्मॉल c का, स्मॉल a का है 97, स्मॉल b 98, स्मॉल c 99, ठीक है। सो 1 और 2 के जो ASCII कोड्स हैं उनको जब आप ऐड करते हैं सो यू गेट 99। सो आई गेस ये क्या होंगे 47 48 या 48 49 इसके आसपास कहीं पे ये इनके कोड्स हैं। इन एनी केस दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू शुड नॉट बी डूइंग, ठीक है। यू शुड नॉट बी एडिंग कैरेक्टर्स, और अगर आप कर भी रहे हैं सो यू शुड नो द बिहेवियर कि ये कैसे बिहेव करेगा, व्हाट वुड बी द आउटकम। इफ यू आर नॉट श्योर अबाउट द आउटकम यू शुड नॉट बी डूइंग इट, ठीक है। सो दिस इज समथिंग दैट इज type unsafe. Characters are not supposed to be added. Characters are not supposed to be added. This is something that is not type safe. But the compiler does not stop you. The C++ compiler, the language, they say nothing to you. So then they expect you कि आपको पता होगा कि आप क्या कर रहे हैं. So that means you can do something that you shouldn't be doing, but you can do. So you should know what you're doing, ठीक है. तो they expect कि आपको at least पता है कि आप क्या कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. So we'll be talking about these things as well. Now let us get back here. अच्छा. Okay, so I guess this is clear. So we have these built-in types: bool, character, and then integer types. May we have int, we have short, we have long. Okay, we have short int, long int. So you can find that those details in your book. ठीक है, वहाँ उसको आप पढ़ें तो you can get those details. We have floating point data types, float and double. Okay, the double we have been using, you can also use float as well. These are the built-in types in the language. Then you have standard library types. So we have used string. We used string in the last lecture. This is a library type. So, and that library is a standard library. It is part of the C++ standard. So every implementation of the C++ language, it is supposed to provide that library, and that library is supposed to have this data type string. Okay? Similarly, if you want to deal with complex numbers, so you have this standard library type complex. Now, if we have time, we'll talk about how to use these types. ठीक है, but अगर ना हो तो फिर वो हम नहीं करेंगे. Then in your code, you also use literals. Literals are constant values. So you can use Boolean literals, true or false. So true is a keyword, false is a keyword. किसी भी Boolean variable को you can assign the value true, the constant value true या constant value false. You can have character literals. This is how you specify character literals with single quotes. ठीक है, तो हमारे प्रोग्राम में हमने जो a को 1 की वैल्यू दी within single quotes. So when you enclose something in single quotes, then it becomes a character literal. अगर हमने 1 को ऐसे ही असाइन किया होता, so then it would have been an integer literal. फिर आप वो एडिशन कर सकते थे कि हाँ जी अब ये 1 और 2 3 ये आंसर होगा, बट हमने वो काम नहीं किया. कहने का मतलब ये है कि if we make this change, if we say a is equal to 1 without the single quotes, b is equal to 2 without the single quotes, now this 1 and this 2, these are integer literals. This is a character variable, but you can assign it an integer literal. ठीक है, you can assign it an integer literal. And इसमें एक और चीज भी याद रखें, integer literals they are stored internally in 32 bits, 4 bytes. कैरेक्टर जो है वो इट इज अ सिंगल बाइट. ठीक है, तो यहां पे देयर इज कन्वर्जन फ्रॉम वन टाइप टू another type, and this conversion is called a narrowing conversion. एक बड़ी वैल्यू को आप छोटी जगह में समोने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, वन बड़ी वैल्यू है, बड़ी वैल्यू इन द सेंस कि इंटरनली वो 32 बिट्स में स्टोर हो रही है, ऑल्दो वन जो है वो एक बाइट में भी आ जाएगी. A byte, a single byte has 8 bits. So I hope like you know these things. A single byte has 8 bits. Okay? With 8 bits, the minimum value that you can store is 0, and the maximum unsigned value that you can store is 255. So if you have n bits, in general ye yaad rakhein, so the range that you can store is 0 to 2 raised to the power n minus 1. Sorry, n minus 1. 0 to 2 raised to the power n minus 1. ठीक है, अच्छा फॉर 8 ये क्या होगा 0 to 2 raised to the power 8 minus 1 2 raised to the power 8 is 256 minus 1 is 255 तो ये आपकी रेंज है. This is for unsigned values. If you have for example 32 bits which is the case of integers ठीक है तो ये अब ये इंटीजर कांस्टेंट है सिर्फ सिंगल कोट्स हटाने से इट टर्न्स फ्रॉम कैरेक्टर लिटरल और कैरेक्टर कांस्टेंट इनटू एन इंटीजर कांस्टेंट अब इंटरनली आपका जो प्रोग्राम है इसको स्टोर करने के लिए इट विल यूज 32 बिट्स अगर सिंगल कोट्स में बंद कर दें तो इट विल बी स्टोर्ड इन अ सिंगल बाइट ठीक है सो दीज वेरी स्मॉल डिसीजंस दे हैव implications 32 बिट्स का क्या मतलब है कि व्हाट इज द रेंज इट इज 0 to 2 raised to the power 32 minus 1. Now 2 raised to the power 32 is 4 billion something. I don't remember the other value, but this is 4 billion something. इसमें से अगर एक subtract करें तो the answer would also be 4 billion something. 4 अरब. ठीक है? So that is the value. So this is a value जो कि 32 bits बड़ी value है. And we are storing it in the integer, sorry, character A. So right hand side पे we have a 32 bit value, left hand side पे we have a 8 bit space. ठीक है so we are trying to fit 32 bit value into 8 bit space यहाँ पे this is fine because most of those 32 bits are zeros तो बस zeros गए तो गए कोई मसला नहीं but in any case this is a narrowing conversion इसको हम क्या कहते हैं this is a narrowing conversion we are trying to fit a bigger value into a smaller space now this bigger value can be like bigger than the single byte can hold अब 1658 है so वो कैरेक्टर में तो आप स्टोर नहीं कर सकते ना those are 8 bits 8 bits cannot hold this big value that is the maximum range तो फिर क्या होगा you are going to lose data you are going to lose data ठीक है so the compiler may not flag this as an error this is a narrowing conversion इस केस में भी narrowing conversion है और इस केस में भी narrowing conversion है इस केस में you will not have serious repercussions कोई मसला नहीं होगा इस केस में you are losing data ठीक है in both cases the compiler is silent it may flag a warning and in many cases it may not flag even a warning ठीक है अच्छा मेरे ख्याल में कहीं वार्निंग शायद आई है overflow in conversion from int to characters ठीक है there is a warning it's not an error but there is a warning आपको बता रहा है if you are careful ठीक है तो शायद वो ना हो but this errors like these have resulted in serious engineering disasters ठीक है सीरियस मसाइल इसने जन्म लिया तो आई गेस द चैलेंजर रॉकेट एक रॉकेट था जो कि हवा में ही फट गया था यूरोपियन स्पेस एजेंसी का मोस्ट प्रॉब्ली सो व्हेन इट फ्लू अवे तो फ्लाइंग के बाद उसका कोर्स जो है वो ख़ता हो गया था कि उन्होंने खुद ब्लास्ट कर दिया था जो भी था दैट इज़ वन द अदर इज़ तो उसमें भी मसला ये था कि वो जो टाइम की वैल्यू वो स्टोर करता था वो 24 बिट्स में करता था 24 बिट्स में फिर वो प्रिसीजन उन्हें मिलती नहीं थी और जब वो डिस्टेंस में कन्वर्ट हो रही थी तो वो डिस्टेंस ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम फिर बहुत बढ़ रहा था ठीक है तो वो अपनी रेंज से बहुत ही आगे पीछे जा रहा था फिर आपने शायद एक और एक बड़ा ही देयर वाज अ वेरी फेमस बग ईयर 2K बग 2000 बग ठीक है एक वो था वो भी बिकॉज ऑफ के तमाम जो कंप्यूटर्स हैं वो डेट को स्टोर करने के लिए सिर्फ 2 डिजिट्स यूज़ करते थे ईयर को यानी 1991 को दे वुड स्टोर इट एज 91 92 93 94 सिमिलरली जब 2000 आ गया तो देन द ईयर ऑटोमेटिकली बिकेम 00 so then people didn't know whether it is 2000 or 1900 or 1800 or 1700 they didn't know so any data computer में जो कि which was using year in this format और उसके पास पुराना डेटा भी है so then that would have resulted in errors so उसके लिए फिर सॉफ्टवेयर अपडेट करना पड़ गया था लोगों को ठीक है and similarly if you have heard about the Patriot missile defense system so 1991 Gulf War में so it missed a scud missile ठीक है और उसकी वजह से मेरे ख्याल में वो रियाद के करीब देर वाज अ बेस अमेरिकन बेस जिसमें कोई 80 के करीब शायद मरीन्स उनके मरे थे ठीक है सो दैट एरर वाज आल्सो अ रिजल्ट ऑफ काइंड ऑफ सच कन्वर्जन विद टाइम जो है ना, वो उसमें मसला आ रहा था। तो विद टाइम अगर सिस्टम आपका पैट्रियट मिसाइल बैटरी जो है ना वो 24 घंटे से ज़्यादा के लिए ऑन है, तो वो टाइम का जो डिफरेंस है एक्चुअल टाइम का और उसके सिस्टम के टाइम को इतना हो जाता था कि फिर वो आने वाले मिसाइल को इट वुड मिस बाय 200 मीटर्स और 300 मीटर्स। ठीक है, सो इट इज़ ट्रैकिंग इन ऑल दैट थिंग। सो दीज आर इंपॉर्टेंट इश्यूज। ठीक है, इनको आपने नेग्लेक्ट नहीं करना, दैट इज़ वाई वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दीज। ओके, सो यू नो लाइक लिटरल्स जो हैं उनको कैसे रिप्रेजेंट किया, दीज आर कैरेक्टर लिटरल्स, दीज आर इंटीजर लिटरल्स। अच्छा, you can specify integer literal in this format as well. 0xA3. This is a hexadecimal value. This is hexadecimal format. Hexadecimal means base 16. ठीक है? So normal जो हम base use करते हैं that is decimal. These are all decimal numbers. ये decimal format है. ठीक है? Computer understands binary. So binary and hexadecimal they have very close relationship. The conversion is very easy. So you can also specify numbers in the hexadecimal format. ठीक है? These are floating point literals. So floating point literals में जिनके साथ ये f लगा हुआ है, so these are floats. They will be stored in 32 bits या 4 bytes. और जिनके साथ कुछ नहीं है, these are doubles. So 1.2 is a double literal. ठीक है? So it will be stored in 8 bytes. Similarly आप floating point values को यूँ भी specify कर सकते हैं, 1.2 multiplied by 10 raised to power 3. 1.2 E3 means 1.2 multiplied by 10 raised to power 3. These are string literals, उनको आप double quotes में enclose करते हैं. And then these are complex literals. We may talk about these later on अगर time हुआ. ठीक है? अच्छा, so ये हमारे पास these are the built-in types that we have: bool, character, int, double. You can also create new, you can also define new data types. ठीक है? In fact, the course that the fourth semester student are studying right now, a course about object-oriented programming and data structures. So that course is all about creating new data types. You create or define your own data types because these data types may not, the built-in types, they may not always be enough to fulfill your requirements. So you might be required to deal with new type of data. For example, if you want to handle time को आपने process करना है, banks या कोई भी application real world, it processes time. Date of birth आप enter करते हैं, फिर age calculate होती है, ठीक है, intervals या duration calculate होती है, मुख्तलिफ चीज़ें. So time is a very useful data type. You do not have a built-in type for time. In C++, you do not have a built-in data type for time, wherein you can process time. Okay? So you can create your own data type time, and then you can use it for doing calculations on time data. Okay? So you can create your, that is where eventually you'll be, what eventually you'll be doing. So perhaps it is offered in third semester in the new scheme of studies, I'm not sure. And then C++ standard library, it also provides you with these types. String we have used. Vector, you may use it in the course on data structures. Okay? You may use it there. So technically these are user defined types because these libraries are not part of, like they are standard libraries, but they are these types are not part of the C++ language. Okay? Somebody wrote these libraries and those libraries are part of it. So the compiler, if you fail to include the relative library, the compiler will not understand okay, what is string or what is vector or what is complex. So in order to use these types, you need to include some library. In order to use these built-in types, you do not need to include any library. These are built into the language. Okay? Asha, we have done that, declaration and initialization. You know that these are just included here for the sake of completion. This is declaration and initialization. You declare a variable, it is created in RAM, you assign it some initial value. Ideally, this is what you should be doing. Before you use any variable, you should try to initialize it. Okay? This is also another example of a declaration and initialization. This is a character variable जिसको आपने initialize किया with some character. Now it takes 4 bytes. A character variable takes a single byte. ठीक है, तो ये जो इनका size है, that is to represent कि these take different amount of space in RAM. This is a double variable x. ठीक है, ये takes 8 bytes और इसको आपने ये constant literal value assign की है 1.2. So this is a double literal. So it takes 8 bytes. This is a string. It has 12 characters. This is the length of the string. Okay? So the string data type, it has this property length. You can find out the length of a string by accessing its length property. This is another string. Although it stores a numeric characters, okay, it considered numeric, but this is nevertheless a string. So ये जो 1.2 store हो रहा है और ये जो 1.2 store, these are completely stored in completely different ways. These are 3 characters. One का ASCII code, point ये period का ASCII code और 2 का ASCII code. So these are 3 ASCII codes put together, ठीक है, in contiguous locations. This is not stored as an ASCII code. This is converted into the IEEE 754 double precision floating point format. So there is a complete standard that decides how floating point values would be stored, how they are going to be added, multiplied, subtracted, divided. So usually all programming languages, they follow the same standard. आपका जो hardware है, जो microprocessor है, it also follows that standard. ठीक है? So you should be aware of these subtleties. ठीक है कि ये जो values आप store कर रहे हैं, even they are the same values, they apparently look the same values, but इनको print भी करेंगे तो they would look the same, but internally their representation is different. Internally their representation is different. Now here these are all objects. This is an object, this is an object, this is an object, this is an object. Okay? So what is an object? So an object is some memory that can hold a value of a given type. Okay? So it is some portion of your RAM which can hold a value of some given type. Okay? So a variable is a named object. किसी object को अगर हम नाम दें तो that is a variable. ठीक है? Anything that occupies some space. ठीक है? उसको हम physical world में matter कहते हैं, लेकिन computer world में you call it an object. ठीक है? So anything that occupies some real estate in your RAM, so that is an object. So a variable is a named object. A declaration names an object, and these are different examples of object. This is an integer object. This is a character object. This is a complex object. ठीक है? Don't worry about this. इसका जो syntax है, it is slightly complicated. ठीक है? So do not worry about it right now. This is a string object. अच्छा, string object को यहाँ पे मुख्तलिफ तरीके से show किया गया. ठीक है? We learn about it. ये जो arrow, if you see this arrow, this basically means कि we have an address here. हमारे पास ये जो string है ना, इसका address यहाँ पे पड़ा हुआ है. Actual string कहीं और पे और उसका address यहाँ पे पड़ा हुआ है. So whenever we talk about addresses, so remember this term pointer. ठीक है? So later on in this course you will learn about pointers. Pointers are also variables, but they do not store values. Pointers do not store values. They store addresses. ठीक है? So normal जो हमारे पास variables हैं, we call them value types, and then we have reference types. Value types and reference types. So reference types, they store addresses. Value types, they store values. So this is a value type. Int a is equal to 7. A is a value type. It stores a value. 7 is a value. It is not an address. X is a value. This character X is a value. It is not an address. You can create variables that we call pointers, and those variables, they store addresses. Okay, so pointers are a very important part of the C++ and C programming languages. Many people think they are challenging to understand. They are not challenging. They are very easy to understand. So आपने सिर्फ इनको differentiate करना कि one is a value, the other is address. Address is something different. Value is something different. Everything on your computer in your RAM में जो भी चीज़ आप store करेंगे, it must have an address, and it has an address. That address is also a number. For example, if you have 4 gigabytes of RAM, so ideally, although इस तरह नहीं होता, लेकिन ideally जो actual physical address है हर location का, it will start from 0 से वो start होगा, ठीक है, और 2 raised to the power 32 minus 1 तक जाएगा final address. So address number 0 पे there would be some single byte value. Address number 2 raised to the power 32 minus 1 पे भी there is a single byte sized location जहाँ पे आप कोई data store कर सकते हैं. So all the addresses, they are also numbers. And pointers are variables that store those addresses. They are interested in those addresses. They are not interested in the value stored at those addresses. You can access, if you have the address, you can do whatever you want with that memory location. Okay? So it is important. So strings, they are stored in a slightly different way. यहाँ पे आपको मुख्तलिफ तरीके से दिखाया गया है, बट यहाँ पे आपको जो असल तरीका है जिसके ज़रिए से ये स्टोर होता है जिस तरीके से, सो स्ट्रिंग में ये जो सो व्हेन वी गो टू पॉइंटर्स, सो विल टॉक अबाउट दिस इन मोर डिटेल. फिलहाल आप इसको इसी तरीके से समझ लें. Now there is another thing that is related to type safety. This is a little bit theoretical. इसमें कुछ एग्जाम्पल मैं आपको बता चुका हूँ. ये जो नैरोइंग कन्वर्जन की एग्जाम्पल है, अनइनिशियलाइज्ड वेरिएबल्स को यूज करने की एग्जाम्पल है, गार्बेज वैल्यूज, दीज आर ऑल इश्यूज दैट आर कंसर्न विद टाइप सेफ्टी. टाइप सेफ्टी से मुराद क्या है? टाइप सेफ्टी से मुराद ये है कि the rules are every object will be used only according to its type. So if you have a character type, you should use it as a character. Should not be like adding it, subtracting it and doing all those things जो कि उस पे हो सकते हैं बट वो उस पे होने नहीं चाहिए. आपका कंपाइलर आपको रोकता नहीं है, बट दैट डज नॉट मीन कि यू शुड बी यूजिंग इट एज एन इंटीजर वैल्यू. ठीक है. ऑल्दो इन सम केसेस बाद में अगर आप एम्बेडेड सिस्टम्स जो कोर्स है उसको अगर आप पढ़ेंगे और उसमें यू आर यूजिंग सी फॉर एम्बेडेड सिस्टम्स, तो वहाँ पे एट टाइम्स यू यूज कैरेक्टर्स फॉर एडिशन एंड सब्ट्रैक्शन और ऑपरेशंस के लिए कैरेक्टर डेटा टाइप को भी यूज करते हैं. ठीक है. सो यू कैन यूज इट, बट you should only use it when you know what you're doing. If you do not have a very clear idea of what you're doing, तो फिर आपको कभी यूज नहीं करना चाहिए. And in any case, a general rule, programming में you should always write simple and straightforward programs. ठीक है. Complex syntax को avoid करना है. Complex syntax को या ऐसा confusing syntax को उसको आपने हमेशा avoid करना है. So these are the rules for language rules for type safety that you should follow. One, every object should be used only according to its type. Does C++ enforce these rules? No. The answer is no. C++ does not enforce every single type safety rule. और languages करती हैं, बाज करती हैं, बाज नहीं करती. ठीक है. So it is a mixed scenario. But this is the rule that you should be following. A variable will be used only after it has been initialized. So you should always initialize a variable. Whenever you declare it, initialize it immediately. ठीक है. ताकि आपको बाद में uninitialized variables को use करने का problem ना है. Only operations defined for the variable's declared type will be applied. If a variable is an integer, so treat it as an integer. If a variable is a string, treat it as a string. If a variable is a character, treat it as a character. Only use those operations which are defined for characters. There may be operations which may not be defined for characters and still those operations would apply in unknown ways. ठीक है. आपको शायद उसका पता ना हो कि how to interpret the result. So you should avoid those situations. Every operation defined for a variable leave the variable with a valid value. Whenever you apply a variation, you should be sure that this operation would have a valid result जब भी ये operation इस पे होगा. ठीक है. So there is अच्छा, we'll return to this slide. Before this, I want to अच्छा, I want to do two things. One, इसको भी हम visit करते हैं. Two, I want to talk about this thing, decision making. ठीक है. पहले decision making का वो कर लें. अच्छा. So first we need to go through this. ठीक है. And then we'll return to that discussion. वो कभी भी हो सकती है. But this is important. This will be useful in your lab. Now, selection using the if structure or decision making using the if structure. What do you mean by selection? Selection means which block of code should be executed and which shouldn't be executed. Okay, that is what selection means. Selection means you have multiple blocks of code and you want to select which should be executed and which shouldn't be executed. या कौन सा कब execute होना चाहिए. So there are three different, in fact not three, multiple ways of doing. ये जो एक if structure है ना, इसकी मुख्तलिफ forms हैं. And again it is very logical, it is very easy to understand. ठीक है. One is the simple if structure. If some condition is true, only then execute this statement. If this condition is false, don't execute this statement. So ये structure क्या करता है, या इसका दूसरा जो version है block वाला, if this condition is true, execute this block of statements. Otherwise, don't execute it. So ये सिर्फ एक block की condition की execution को conditional बना देता है. If a certain condition is true, only then that block of code is executed. Otherwise, वो नहीं execute होता. ठीक है? It is useful in some situations, but it is not always useful. This is more useful structure. If this condition is true, execute this block. If the condition is false, then execute this block. Else, if, else. Okay? So this is more useful. For example, a very simple problem is that you ask the user to enter some value and then you want to tell whether that value is odd or even. Okay? So how would you find out whether some value is odd or even? G. How do you do it normally? If you have this value and if you have this value, how do you know which one is odd and which one is even? Okay? So yes, so normally what we do is we look at the last digit. Okay? So if the last digit unit digit is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, it is odd. If it is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, it is even. वैसे principle क्या है? You divide it by 2 and you check or look at the remainder. If the remainder is 0, that means it is even. If the remainder is 1, that means it is odd. Okay? That is how you do it. So let's do it. Let us write a very simple program जो कि ये काम करता हो. ठीक है? So say for example we ask the user, this is our integer, say integer x, this is its initial value. We ask the user to enter, please enter an integer value. ठीक है? So the user would enter an integer value, we read that value into the variable x. अच्छा बाकी जो पुराना कोड है उसको मैं कमेंट आउट कर रहा हूँ and I am using C style comment. ठीक है? C style comment. So this is C style comment. C style comment is a multi-line comment. You should know that. ठीक है? अच्छा. So we have x. Now we want to find out if x is odd or even. So how do you do it? You need to find out the remainder. Divide it by 2 and find out the remainder. Do we have an operator for that? We have an operator for that. In one of the lab sessions, you should have used it. The operator is the modulo operator. Okay? So this is the operator. So what do we need to do? If x, यानी x को हम divide करेंगे by 2 और फिर हमारे पास remainder आएगा, we would look at the remainder. If the remainder is 0, the number is, हम कहेंगे कि this number is even. If the remainder is 1, then this number is odd. अच्छा वो कैसे कर सकते हैं? So how do you use the if structure? You use the keyword if, then within these parentheses you specify the condition, then within these opening and curly braces you specify the block of code which you want to execute if this condition is true. If the condition here is true, you want this block of code to execute. इसमें जो भी जितनी भी statements हैं you want it to execute. ठीक है? How do you specify the condition? This is the condition. If x modulo 2, हम x को divide कर रहे हैं by 2 and we are interested in the remainder, not in the quotient. That's why we are using the modulo operator. If we were interested in the quotient, we would use the division operator. But we are interested in the remainder, so we use the modulo operator. So x modulo 2 will divide x by 2 and give you the remainder, will return you the remainder. Now this expression will return us the remainder. We want to compare that with 0. Is it equal to 0? X modulo 2 is equal to 0. So we have an expression. This expression is equal to 0. Okay? If this looks confusing, so you can always, if this expression is long or big, so you can always enclose it within parentheses. You can always enclose it within parentheses. Okay? So in order to avoid confusion, you can always do it. Okay? Achha, so now this expression would be evaluated. This would give you the remainder after x is divided by 2 and you compare it with किस चीज़ के साथ कंपेयर कर रहे हैं? 0 के साथ. and if for example वो 0 के बराबर है तो you want to print some message. What should be the message? इसका मतलब है कि x is an even number. x is an even number. ठीक है? अच्छा, दिस इज द सिंपल इफ स्ट्रक्चर. सिंपल इफ स्ट्रक्चर क्या कर रहा है, सिर्फ एक ब्लॉक ऑफ कोड की एग्जीक्यूशन को कंडीशनल बना रहा है. नाउ you compile it and then build and run. अच्छा, so we enter an integer value 458, deliberately even number enter कर रहे हैं. So 458 is an even number. ठीक है, बहुत अच्छी बात है. Now let us run it again. Say now we enter an odd value 153. We don't get any message. ठीक है. अच्छा, so the simple if structure, like it is only useful if ऐसी situation है जिसमें you want to do something when a certain condition is true, और अगर वो condition false है तो it doesn't matter, you don't want to do anything else. ठीक है, ये वो situation नहीं है. Here you want some message to be printed in both situations. ठीक है, तो वो कैसे करेंगे? ओहो. So next is else. If this condition is false, then what should happen? So else this block should be executed. Okay? If this condition is true, this block should be executed. If this condition is false, the block of code after else that should be executed. ठीक है? So वो मैसेज क्या होना चाहिए कि x is an odd number. ठीक है? अच्छा, let us build and run it. So now 789. 789 is an odd number. ठीक है? अच्छा, ये भी बड़ा मसला है. आप बार बार एक एक नंबर को चेक करने के लिए बार बार इस प्रोग्राम को रन कर रहे हैं. सो हाउ कैन वी फिक्स दिस प्रॉब्लम? लूप्स. ठीक है, सो लेट अस यूज लूप्स. सो while x sorry is not equal to 0, and let us initialize it with the value 1. ठीक है, so while x is not equal to 0, we want to repeat something. What do we want to repeat? We want to repeat this whole thing. ठीक है, सो मैंने इसको थोड़ा सा इंडेंट कर दिया है सो दैट आई नो कि ब्लॉक ऑफ कोड जो रिपीट हो रहा है वो कौन सा वाला है. एंड देन आई पुट द क्लोजिंग करली ब्रेस, और वो दोनों जो है ना वो हाईलाइट हो गए. ये दोनों ओपनिंग करली ब्रेस और क्लोजिंग ये हाईलाइट हो गए. विच वन कोरिस्पॉन्ड्स टू विच? ठीक है, सो यू नो दैट. ठीक है, सो नाउ दिस प्रोसेस वुड बी रिपीटेड. कब तक? जब तक आप जीरो की वैल्यू ना एंटर करें. ठीक है, सो लेट अस बिल्ड एंड रन. So say 21, 58, 96, 47. ठीक है, that's it. अच्छा, now we use a specific term. यहाँ पे हम थोड़ी सी एक term भी introduce कर लें. This is called nesting. नेस्टिंग. नेस्टिंग क्या मतलब है कि हमने एक कंट्रोल स्ट्रक्चर को दूसरे कंट्रोल स्ट्रक्चर में नेस्ट कर दिया. सो इनसाइड अ व्हाइल लूप यू हैव एन इफ लूप. इनसाइड एन इफ लूप, सॉरी, इफ इज नॉट अ लूप, you have an if else selection structure. Inside an if else selection structure you can have loops. Inside a loop you can have nested loops. ठीक है, so you can have one structure nested into another structure. That you can do that. ठीक है, so you use the if else structure for decision making. Then you can have situations. अब ये जो if else structure है, this also tests just one condition. It also tests a single condition. ठीक है, अच्छा. So अगर फर्ज किया there can be situations where like you need to test multiple conditions. ठीक है, what are those situations? For example, if I need to find out your grade in this course, so I need to get your final total marks. ठीक है, and let us assume कि हम absolute grading system को use कर रहे हैं, and based upon those marks I need to find out कि आपको कौन सा grade मिलना चाहिए. ठीक है, So then I have to test multiple conditions. Why? Because the problem demands it. If your marks are between 95 and 100, you get an A. If your marks are between 90 and 95, you get an A minus. Similarly, if your marks are between 85 and 90, you get a B plus. Then B, B minus, C plus, C, C minus, D plus, D, F. Okay? So that means I have to test multiple conditions. I need to know in which particular interval your marks lie so that I can give you the right grade. Okay? That means I have to test multiple conditions. If a student enters, if a user enters some marks, I have to test multiple conditions in order to find out the correct grade. Okay? So let us do that as well. अच्छा इसको भी मैं कमेंट आउट कर देता हूँ. Let me drag it to this place. So this part is also commented. Acha. This was also part of it. So let us take it as well. Acha. Now what do we want to do? We want to ask the user to enter the marks and we want to find out कि उसका grade क्या बनेगा. ठीक है? So we need to use another version of the if else structure. उसको हम कहते हैं if else if structure. If some condition is true, do something. Else if another condition is true, do something else. Else if, else if, else if. So you basically specify more than one conditions, and if any of those conditions is true, something will happen. Okay? So this is the syntax. If condition 1 is true, you execute block 1. If condition 2 is true, you execute block 2. Okay? This is how it is. If condition 1 is true, you want to execute this block. Else if condition 2 is true, this block should be executed. Else if condition 3 is true, this should be executed. Else if all these conditions are false, what should be done? So then you use the else part. So if all these conditions are false, this block 4 will be executed. Okay? Now this structure fits in the problem that we are talking about, the problem of finding your grades. Okay? So say we ask the user to enter the marks. Float, let us use the float data type as well. Float marks. Okay? Let us initialize it to the value 0.0f. Okay? So you can initialize it to 0 or 0.0 or 0.0f. All are different. Okay? So if we say 0, this is an integer literal. 0 is an integer literal or integer constant. 0.0 is a double literal. And 0.0f is a float literal. ठीक है? सब में फर्क है. The representation, internal representation of all these constants, it is just 1 0. ठीक है? आप इसको interpret करते हैं as 1 0, but it is different. This is stored as an integer, 32 bits में. This is stored as a floating point value in 8 bytes, 64 bits में. This is stored as a floating point value in 32 bits. The internal representation of all these three zeros is different. You interpret and use it in much the same way. ठीक है? ये किस सेमेस्टर के स्टूडेंट हैं? हमारे स्टूडेंट्स हैं या किसके? नहीं है? अच्छा ठीक है. Okay, so we have the marks and the variable. अच्छा फिर हम यूजर को कहते हैं कि see out please enter your percentage marks. ठीक है? अच्छा यहाँ पे we are not checking whether marks जो हैं वो percentage marks हैं भी या नहीं. ठीक है? यानी the user can enter a value, a negative value or a value greater than 100, that the user can do. We are not validating it right now. You can do validation as well, but we are not doing it right now. ठीक है? अच्छा. So the marks would be read into the variable marks. Now we need to decide. अच्छा, पहला decision, if, here you learn something else as well. When would the person get an A grade? If marks are greater than 95, ठीक है, and less than 100. ठीक है, लेस देन 100 की शर्त वैसे ना भी लगाएं तो ठीक है. सो यू कैन से इफ मार्क्स आर ग्रेटर देन 95. दैट डिपेंड्स, ठीक है, ग्रेटर देन और इक्वल टू या ग्रेटर देन, जो भी आपकी चलें, ग्रेटर देन और इक्वल टू सही है. अच्छा, if marks are greater than or equal to, we need to do something. So these opening and curly braces, this is the block of code that I want to execute if marks are greater than or equal to 95. अच्छा, else if marks जो हैं they are less than 95, marks are less than 95. तो लेस देन 95 तो बहुत सारी वैल्यूज हैं, 50 भी लेस देन 95 है, 30 भी लेस देन 95 है और 94 भी लेस देन 95 है. So that means we need to put another check in place as well. Marks are less than 95 and greater than 90. Greater than or equal to 90. एंड कैसे करेंगे आप, इन दोनों कंडीशंस को हम एंड कर रहे हैं, दोनों कंडीशंस का ट्रू होना जरूरी है, दोनों कंडीशंस का ट्रू होना जरूरी है. सो वी नीड टू यूज बूलियन ऑपरेटर्स फॉर दैट, बूलियन और लॉजिकल ऑपरेटर्स फॉर दैट. ठीक है, एंड आप कैसे करते हैं, ये एम्परसैंड का जो सिंपल है, एम्परसैंड, इसको आप डबल जब यूज करते ना, सो दिस इज द बूलियन ऑपरेटर या लॉजिकल ऑपरेटर. ये जो ऑपरेटर है डबल एम्परसैंड, this symbol is read as ampersand. Ampersand. It is logical and. Logical and से मुराद कि the output is only true if all the conditions are true. ठीक है, बिजली है, स्टूडेंट्स हैं, टीचर्स हैं, छुट्टी का दिन नहीं है, if all these conditions are true, क्लास का टाइम है, then the class will take place, otherwise नहीं. ठीक है, so logical and basically combines all the conditions. उन सब कंडीशंस का ट्रू होना जरूरी है. सो वन कंडीशन इज के मार्क्स लेस देन 95 एंड दिस इज लॉजिकल एंड. ठीक है, ये लॉजिकल एंड ऑपरेटर है, दिस इज द लॉजिकल एंड ऑपरेटर. एंड दूसरी कंडीशन क्या है, मार्क्स आर ग्रेटर देन और इक्वल टू 90. तो फिर जो होना चाहिए वो हम यहां स्पेसिफाई करना चाहते हैं. ठीक है, अच्छा, अब हम इसको कॉपी कर लेते हैं. ठीक है, एल्स इफ, देन वी नीड टू स्पेसिफाई द रिमेनिंग कंडीशंस. अच्छा, एल्स इफ, एल्स इफ, एल्स इफ, ये हो गया ए माइनस, सॉरी ये हो गया ए माइनस, बी प्लस, बी माइनस, सी प्लस. अच्छा, देन सी माइनस, डी प्लस, डी, एंड देन आखिर में यू कैन हैव एन एल्स. अगर इसके अलावा कोई मार्क्स हो तो देन द पर्सन गेट्स एन एफ ग्रेड. ठीक है, अच्छा, अब इन इंटरवल्स को, लिमिट्स को आप सेट कर सकते हैं. दिस इज 90. अच्छा, इफ मार्क्स आर लेस देन 90 एंड ग्रेटर देन और इक्वल टू 85, दिस इज 85, फिर 80, देन दिस इज 80, 75, then this is 75, 70, this is 70, 65, then we have 65, 60, 60, 55, then we have 55 and 50. This is D grade. ठीक है, sorry 50. If something marks are less than 50, ठीक है, and a greater than or equal to condition भी false है, less than 50 है, तो फिर the grade is F. अच्छा, let me take this comment there. अच्छा, यहाँ पे क्या मैसेज होगा, पहले तो यहाँ पे मैसेज आना चाहिए. ठीक है, सी आउट, sorry, your grade is A. Okay, and then enter. अच्छा, आप एक स्टेटमेंट सही तरीके से लिखें एंड देन यू कैन कॉपी पेस्ट इट, ठीक है? सो हियर, here, here, here. So we will modify the grades, but आप पहले इस कोड को create कर लें and then we'll do the modifications. Else. अच्छा जी, ठीक है. So यहाँ पे grade is A minus, here the grade is B plus, here it is simple B, here it is B minus, here it is C plus, here it is C, then C minus, then D plus, then D, and then F. ठीक है? अच्छा, this is how we can find out the grade of a person, letter grade of a person, if we know the marks. हमें अगर marks का पता हो तो this is how we can find out the grade using the if else if structure. ठीक है? This is the if else if structure. The if structure, it only tests one condition. If it is true, it executes a block of code. The if else, it tests one condition, but it has two pathways. If the condition is true, go through one of those pathways. If the condition is false, go through the other one. Now, if you need to test multiple conditions, you have the option of using if else if. So there you can specify multiple conditions and then you're testing those conditions. If any of those conditions is true, so you do something. अच्छा, so let us build it, see if we have any errors. पहले compile कर लें. ठीक है, marks, the variable is marks और हम यहाँ पे हमने mark यूज़ किया, बाकी जगहों पे marks ही यूज़ किया है. ठीक है, हाँ जी सही है. अच्छा, इसको फिक्स कर दिया है. Now let us compile it again. It is fine. Let us build and run. Please enter your percentage marks. So the percentage marks are, say for example, they are 78. So your grade is B minus. ठीक है? 78 जो है, it is greater than or equal to 75, less than 80. So greater than or equal to 75, greater than or equal to 75, less than 80. ये condition इसके लिए true पड़ती है. ठीक है? So your grade is B minus. Now if you want to repeat this code for, ठीक है? अच्छा, तो वो आप कैसे कर सकते हैं? We want to repeat it. इसको आप कोई इनिशियल नॉन जीरो वैल्यू दे दें. ठीक है, दिस इज नॉन जीरो वैल्यू और मेक इट 1. while marks is not equal to 0, so repeat this whole process. ठीक है, what is the process? This is the process. We want to prompt the user कि वो marks enter करे, then we want to read those marks, then we want to find out the grade based upon those marks. ठीक है, this is the code. अच्छा, let's compile it and build and run. So now we are going to repeat that process. So मुख्तलिफ students हैं और हम हर एक के ऐसे marks enter कर रहे हैं. 96, 32, 75, ठीक है, 88, 97, 91, 59, 67, 63, 82, 86, sorry 82, 86. ठीक है? So when you want to exit, just enter 0 and you'll exit G. अच्छा, द क्वेश्चन इज कि अगर इफ वी रिमूव द लेस देन स्टेटमेंट तो फिर भी काम ठीक करना चाहिए, लाइक वी शुड रिमूव दिस थिंग। इस केस में ठीक काम करेगा। अच्छा, लेट अस ट्राई। आपको क्वेश्चन की समझ आएगी? क्वेश्चन इज कि इफ वी रिमूव दिस कंडीशन इट शुड वर्क फाइन। ठीक है, yes it would work fine in this particular condition, but if we change the order of these conditions, like if I say if marks are greater than or equal to 85 तो फिर grade B plus हो, ये पहले आ जाए, और वो जो A minus की condition है वो बाद में आ जाए, then you run into a problem। ठीक है, तो फिर आपका जो कोड है वो फिर आपको ठीक रिजल्ट नहीं देगा। लेट अस ट्राई दैट। अब ये है ना, नाउ द इफ एल्स इफ स्ट्रक्चर द वे इट वर्क्स इज इफ एनी कंडीशन इज फाउंड टू बी ट्रू इट डज नॉट टेस्ट द रिमेनिंग कंडीशंस। चलिए ये निकल जाता है। ठीक है, सो द ऑर्डर ऑफ द कंडीशंस इज इंपॉर्टेंट। ये खुद से सही कंडीशन पे जम नहीं करेगा, स्टार्ट्स हियर, यहां से स्टार्ट करता है एंड बारी बारी सिक्वेंशली इन कंडीशंस को चेक करता है। अगर इसको कोई ट्रू कंडीशन मिल जाती है तो उसके बाद वाली कंडीशंस को ये चेक नहीं करता, इट जस्ट एग्जिट्स। ठीक है, सो यस दैट इज करेक्ट। अगर हम ये हटा देना, लेट अस डू दैट। मैं इसको ये कॉपी कर लेता हूं। ठीक है, एंड आई एम मूविंग दिस कोड हियर ताकि मेरे पास इस ओरिजिनल की एक कॉपी महफूज रहे। एंड देन लेट अस डू दैट। इसको हटा देते हैं, ये जो लेस देन वाली कंडीशन है इसको हटा देते हैं। अच्छा, अच्छा जी, वो कंडीशन हमने हटा दी। लेट अस टेस्ट दिस कोड इन दिस कॉन्फ़िगरेशन जो इसकी करंट है। रन्स फाइन, लेट अस बिल्ड एंड रन। अच्छा जी, आए अब ग्रेड्स कैलकुलेट करते हैं। से फॉर एग्जांपल 45 है, सो वी गेट एन एफ ग्रेड करेक्ट। 52 है, वी शुड गेट अ डी ग्रेड। ठीक है, अच्छा, व्हाट इज द कंडीशन? द कंडीशन इज मार्क्स ग्रेटर देन और इक्वल टू। ठीक है, अच्छा, अगर हम 91 वी गेट एन ए माइनस, 96 ए, सिमिलरली 78 बी माइनस। ठीक काम कर रहे हैं। ठीक है, लेट अस चेंज समथिंग। फॉर एग्जांपल let me move these three conditions here। ठीक है, we've changed the order of the conditions। Let us compile the code, it compiles fine, let us build and run। Now for example we have the student obtains marks जो है ना उसके हैं 96, you get an A grade, fine। अब है marks उसके 94, so he or she should get an A minus grade, but आप कह रहे हैं कि your grade is B plus। ठीक है, why? बिकॉज यहाँ पे अब वो फूल प्रूफ मैकेनिज्म नहीं रहा कि मार्क्स जो है ना वो करेक्ट इंटरवल में लोकेट कर दिए जाएं। अब 94 जो है वो 85 से भी ग्रेटर हैं। दिस कंडीशन इज ट्रू, दिस इज ट्रू, दिस इज ट्रू एंड दिस इज ऑल्सो ट्रू 94। ठीक है, लेकिन पहली कंडीशन जो उसे मिलती है ना वो ये वाली मिलती है, तो वो इस बेसिस पे ग्रेड कैलकुलेट कर लेगा एंड देन इट विल एग्जिट। तो इट वुड वर्क, बट देन यू शुड बी केयरफुल कि आपकी कंडीशंस का जो सीक्वेंस है दैट शुड बी करेक्ट। अगर वहां पे गड़बड़ आपने कर दी, सो द पहली जो ट्रू कंडीशन उसको मिल जाती है, इट विल जस्ट उसी पे काम चला लेगा और इट विल गेट आउट ऑफ द इफ एल्स इफ स्ट्रक्चर। सो देन फिर आपकी जो आउटपुट है दैट वोंट बी करेक्ट। ठीक है, तो ये स्टूडेंट लड़ने के लिए आ जाएगा कि जी मेरे तो मार्क्स इतने बनते हैं और आपने मुझे ग्रेड जो है वो ये दिया है। ठीक है, सो ए माइनस जो है ना, वो बेचारे सारे उनका हाल ख़राब हो जाएगा, ठीक है। अच्छा, so I hope like it is clear to you कि how to use these the if selection structure, उसकी जो मुख्तलिफ configurations हैं, the simple if structure, the if else structure, the if else if structure, कब use करना है, कैसे use करना है, you should be aware of that. And again the same thing applies here. This is a condition which you should specify using relational operators. And you can combine two or more conditions. आप logically दो या ज़्यादा conditions को combine कर सकते हैं. You have the logical and operator, we have the logical or operator. अगर ये condition true हो या ये condition true हो, so logical or operator जो है ना, it is something like this. चूंकि हमने logical and का जिक्र किया है, so logical or का भी जिक्र कर लेते हैं. For example, we have these variables bool a b c, ठीक है. And you say a is equal to b is equal to c is equal to, say initially we say true, ये तमाम true हैं. Now these are logical variables. Boolean data types are logical variables हैं. The same data type as the output of condition. अगर आप कोई condition create करते हैं ना using relational operators, उसका जो result है और ये जो variables हैं दोनों की type same है, ठीक है. So I just want to demonstrate कि ये जो operators हैं उनको आप कैसे use कर सकते हैं. So c is equal to a, this is logical and, this is logical or, c is equal to a. अच्छा, sorry, ये pipe character, you have to find out this pipe character. ये जो vertical lines ही होती है ना, you have to find out in your on your keyboard. So if you type it, it turns into a pipe. जैसे pipe नहीं होता, so that's why it's called a pipe character. इन दोनों को pipe character कहते हैं. So this is the logical or, ठीक है. What do we mean by logical and or? So you should know and a and b दोनों का true होना जरूरी है for c to be true. If one of them is false, so then c is false. अच्छा, ये हमने दो operators पे apply किए, और you can operands पे apply किए, you can have multiple operands just like addition. आप 10 नंबर को ऐड करना चाहते हैं या 50 नंबर को या 2 नंबर्स को, it's fine. So similarly you can and logical and as many boolean types or as many conditions as you need. This is the logical or operator. और कैसे काम करता है? If this is true or this is true, or if only one condition is true, the output is true. ठीक है? For the output to be false, all the conditions must be false. So this is the logical. You can combine conditions in both ways. ठीक है? Then we have the not operator as well. Like you can invert a condition. If not of something, if a condition is true and it's not as false, so then up. If a condition is false or उसका not true है, तो then you want to decide on something. We'll talk about that later. उतना अहम तो है लेकिन चलें, इतना वो नहीं है. But you should remember this is the logical and logical or, ये दो operators हैं. So I just showed you कि इनको आप यानी कैसे logical or को use कर सकते हैं, ठीक है. किसी example को हमने नहीं इस पे वो किया, solve किया, but you will find out plenty of examples for that. So this is how the if, again जिस तरह के while loop में हमने किया ना, while 1, while 0, while 5, so you can do the same with this as well. If within parentheses you can say if 1, so that condition would always be true. You don't do that normally. Normally हम ये काम नहीं करते, ठीक है. So normally we go by the proper way, proper तरीके से हम चीज़ों को करते हैं. अच्छा, why am I talking about these things first? Because in the lab session you'll need these things, and in the next lab you'll have two labs in the same lab session. So वो आसान होगा, इतना मुश्किल नहीं होगा, but we are lagging there, so we need to catch up. So you need to understand these language features. जो थोड़ी सी theory है उसको हम next class में भी cover कर सकते हैं. The other thing that we mentioned here was this thing, assignment and increment. Now this is also different. I guess we have used this thing. इसको थोड़ा सा हमने इस्तेमाल किया है, ठीक है. And we have used the increment operator as well. So say you have an integer variable a, उसको आपने initialize कर दिया with the value 7. So when you assign it a new value, the old value वो चली जाती है. That is removed. ठीक है? So this is assignment. This is plain simple assignment. आप assignment कर रहे हैं at the time of declaration. So you're initializing it. बाद में आप किसी भी टाइम अपने प्रोग्राम में किसी वेरिएबल को नई वैल्यू असाइन कर सकते हैं. यू कैन डू दैट. तो वही जो रैम का हिस्सा है उसमें नई वैल्यू कॉपी हो जाती है. ए इज एलोकेटेड द सेम वैल्यू. ये मुख्तलिफ लोकेशंस नहीं है, इट इज़ द सेम लोकेशन, लेकिन मुख्तलिफ टाइम्स पे उसकी वैल्यू बताई गई है कि अगर आप उसको डिक्लेयर करते हैं और इनिशलाइज करते हैं विद द वैल्यू 7, सो ए विल होल्ड द वैल्यू 7. यू असाइन इट अ न्यू वैल्यू. ठीक है, असाइनमेंट चेंज ए टू 9. सो यू डू दैट. ए इज असाइन द वैल्यू ऑफ 9, तो उसमें 9 की वैल्यू आ जाएगी. यू कैन डू समथिंग लाइक दिस एज वेल. ए इज इक्वल टू ए प्लस ए. ए को आप अपनी डबल वैल्यू असाइन कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, या ए इज इक्वल टू 2 टाइम्स ए. So you are modifying the value of a using the old value of a. So नई वैल्यू उसकी क्या होगी, पुरानी वैल्यू को आप पुरानी वैल्यू के साथ ऐड कर दें. So यहाँ लेफ्ट हैंड साइड ऑफ द एक्सप्रेशन यू हैव एन a and on the right hand you also have an a. ठीक है. So what you do here, this is the old value of a. This here is the old value of a. This would be the new value of a. So the old value of a would be added to itself, and whatever the result is, it will be copied back into a. That is what this statement means. जी. That is the most recent value. अगर ये instructions इस sequence में execute हो रही हैं, तो int a is equal to 7 की वैल्यू थी, इस statement ने 7 को erase कर दिया. अब now we have 9. So this is the value of a now. This is the old value of a. ठीक है. Old value means कि पिछली instruction पे अगर modify हुए, the last time it was modified. This is the last time it was modified. That is the second last time when it was modified. So this is the most latest or recent value of a. This is what we mean by that. ठीक है. तो इस instruction की execution यानी ये आपको ये जो result नजर आ रहा है, this is basically after the sequential execution of these statements. So a is equal to a plus a means a की जो पुरानी value है which is 9. This one is gone. This is no longer available. It was overwritten by this statement. ठीक है. So a की जो पुरानी वैल्यू है which is 9 plus 9, so this is 18. So वो that will be assigned to a. Then we say a plus is equal to 2. That means a is equal to a plus 2. This statement is short for a is equal to a plus 2. Here यानी इस statement को भी आप इस format में लिख सकते हैं. You can say a plus equal to a. ये जो statement है, you can write it in this format as well. This is a shortcut notation कि आप addition और assignment दोनों एक ही उसमें कर रहे हैं, या incrementation और assignment दोनों एक ही instruction एक ही operator के जरिए करते हैं. So this is basically short for a is equal to a plus 2. So a की पुरानी value 18 थी, 18 plus 2, या you can read it as increment the value of a by 2. यहाँ 2 की जगह a भी हो सकता है, b भी हो सकता है, कोई और वैल्यू भी हो सकती है. So you can say increment the value of a by a, or increment the value of a by 1 or by variable b. ठीक है. So you can have all these possibilities. ये 20 हो गया. This is increment a. Increment increments a by only 1. So this is the increment operator. It increments the value of a by only 1. So similarly we have decrement operator, minus minus a. It will decrement the value of a by 1. अच्छा, increment operator, it is a unary operator. Increment and decrement, these are unary operators. ठीक है. अच्छा, let me take out this code as well. इसको भी हटा देते हैं. Since we are talking about increment and decrement operators, so let us, अच्छा, here say we have an integer variable a and we initialize a to the value 1, say for example. Now, so you can do something like this. आप कह सकते हैं जी plus plus a. ठीक है. So अब तक हम इसको कह रहे हैं कि increment a. Increment a means increment a by 1. This is basically increment a by 1. ठीक है. अगर आप इसको प्रिंट करें सी आउट, तो आप कहेंगे जी a is equal to a and then enter. So what would be the output? 2. ठीक है. The output would be 2. Build and run. a is equal to 2 प्रिंट होगा. फाइन. ठीक है. अच्छा जी, Now, this is increment A, but this is increment is a unary operator. Unary operator can have two forms. One is prefix form, the other is postfix form. Prefix matlab it comes before the operand. ठीक है? So a unary operator, let me add this slide here. ठीक है? अच्छा जी. Unary operators. So we have the increment operator. ठीक है? क्या है वो ऑपरेटर? ये है जी इंक्रीमेंट ऑपरेटर. ठीक है? ये उसकी एग्जाम्पल के साथ. This is an example of doing increment. Now the increment operator, similarly we have decrement operator. Decrement operator, उसकी example ये है minus minus a. Now unary operators, अच्छा ये unary operators can have two forms. One is prefix form, ठीक है? The other is postfix form. Prefix form mean कि it comes before the operand. The operator comes before the operand. ठीक है? Postfix form से मुराद the operator comes after the operand. Examples क्या हैं? So plus plus a, this is prefix form. Prefix form of the increment operator. और a plus plus, this is the postfix form of the increment operator. ठीक है? दोनों इंक्रीमेंट कर रहे हैं. दोनों इंक्रीमेंट कर रहे हैं, but increment operator can have these two configuration. Either it would come appear before the operand or it would appear after the operand. ठीक है? अब normally this is no big deal. So the same applies for the decrement operator as well. ठीक है? So the decrement operator can also have these two variations. Sorry. So we can have the prefix form जिसमें ये it comes before the operand, and we can have the postfix form where it comes after the operand. ठीक है? अच्छा. Now normally it is no big deal. Normally से मुराद कब? For example, if I say a plus plus, ठीक है? So now what would be the output? a फिर इंक्रीमेंट हो रहा है ना, सो नेक्स्ट स्टेटमेंट होगी उसमें फिर a की आउटपुट क्या होगी? 3. ठीक है? हाँ, बाय 1. इंक्रीमेंट इज ऑलवेज बाय 1. ठीक है? सो a इज इक्वल टू 2, a इज इक्वल टू 3. अच्छा जी, दोनों का बिहेवियर सेम है यहां पे. ठीक है? इस केस में दोनों का बिहेवियर सेम है. अब इनका डिफरेंस कहां पे आता है उसको देखते हैं. अच्छा जी, फिर हम कहते हैं सी आउट. लेट मी प्रिंट दिस. अब मैं कहता हूं कि प्री इंक्रीमेंट ए, एंड देन आई से प्री इंक्रीमेंट ए. ठीक है? सो व्हाट वुड बी द आउटपुट? एंड देन आई से देयर इज अनदर वेरिएशन, post increment a, and then I do post increment a. So now, like in the output statement, we are pre-incrementing a and post-incrementing a. So the question is, okay, what would be the output in these situations? G, any guesses? So here a 1 था, pre-increment किया 2 हो गया, post-increment किया 3 हो गया, a is equal to 3 प्रिंट हो गया. अब यहाँ पे क्या होगा? फिर हम इंक्रीमेंट कर रहे हैं, 4 हो जाएगा ना. अच्छा, 4 हो जाएगा और 4 ही प्रिंट होगा. प्री इंक्रीमेंट मींस प्री इंक्रीमेंट ए एंड देन प्रिंट. ठीक है? यहां पे बिहेवियर थोड़ा सा मुख्तलिफ होगा. पोस्ट इंक्रीमेंट मींस, पोस्ट इंक्रीमेंट का सिर्फ ये मतलब नहीं होता कि द ऑपरेटर कम्स आफ्टर द ऑपरेंड. उसका ये भी मतलब होता है कि फर्स्ट प्रिंट ए देन इंक्रीमेंटेड. सो यहां पे a की वैल्यू इंक्रीमेंट होने से पहले प्रिंट हो जाएगी. ठीक है? इसके बाद अगर आप a की वैल्यू प्रिंट करेंगे तो वो दोनों मुख्तलिफ होंगी. ये वैल्यू और ये वैल्यू मुख्तलिफ हैं, होंगी, दोनों को मुख्तलिफ नहीं होना चाहिए। वैसे हमारी एक्सपेक्टेशन यही है कि दे शुड बी द सेम, बिकॉज वी आर इंक्रीमेंटिंग एंड आफ्टर दिस इंक्रीमेंट वी आर नॉट चेंजिंग ए, so these outputs should be the same, but they are not the same. Why aren't they the same? पहले देख लें आउटपुट है क्या, then we'll learn about it. Okay, so let us compare side by side. int a is equal to 1, so a की वैल्यू 1 है, प्री इंक्रीमेंट a को आपने प्री इंक्रीमेंट कर दिया, 2 हो गया, सी आउट a is equal to 2 प्रिंट हो गया, ठीक है। देन वी पोस्ट इंक्रीमेंट a, 3 हो गया a, फिर हम कहते हैं a is equal to 3, तो उसकी वैल्यू प्रिंट हो गई। फिर हम कहते हैं प्री इंक्रीमेंट a, और a को प्री इंक्रीमेंट करके प्रिंट कर रहे हैं। सो प्लस प्लस a में पहले क्या होता है, a इंक्रीमेंट हो जाता है फिर वो प्रिंट होता है, तो a 4 हो गया। यहां पे फिर हम कह रहे हैं कि पोस्ट इंक्रीमेंट a, इसमें फिर क्या होता है कि a पहले प्रिंट होता है फिर वो इंक्रीमेंट होता है, तो a की पुरानी वैल्यू 4 प्रिंट होती है, लेकिन उसके बाद वो इंक्रीमेंट हो जाता है और 5 बन जाता है, तो उसके बाद जब हम a को प्रिंट करते हैं तो 5 प्रिंट होता है, ठीक है, इंक्रीमेंटेड वैल्यू। बट ड्यूरिंग द एग्जीक्यूशन ऑफ दिस स्टेटमेंट पुरानी वैल्यू प्रिंट होती है, क्योंकि पहले वो प्रिंट होती है फिर वो इंक्रीमेंट होती है। तो प्री इंक्रीमेंट पोस्ट इंक्रीमेंट इज अदरवाइज द सेम, अदरवाइज मीन्स कि यहां पे इनका बिहेवियर इट इज द सेम, बट इफ यू आर यूजिंग इट विद इन अनदर स्टेटमेंट और एक्सप्रेशन तो फिर द बिहेवियर इज डिफरेंट। प्री क्या करता है, पहले इंक्रीमेंट करो फिर यूज करो, प्री इंक्रीमेंट एंड देन यूज। पोस्ट इंक्रीमेंट इज फर्स्ट यूज देन इंक्रीमेंटेड। So this is how you have to read these operators, and it applies both to decrement and increment. Pre decrement का भी यही behavior है और post decrement का भी यही behavior है। So pre increment and post pre decrement and post increment and post decrement they behave in the same way. ठीक है, इसकी समझ आ गई? Any questions? No questions. ठीक है, that means कि आपको वाकई में समझ आ गई है। अच्छा, so let us stop the recording.